Do you want to get signed by a literary agent? Well, then you're in luck because today I sat down with Wendy Sherman. Yes, that Wendy from Wendy Sherman Associates Literary Management. So if you want to learn how to get out of the slush pile and get that call from the agent, then watch this video and learn from a literal agent. Come on, let's go. Your journey in the publishing industry is quite extensive, including roles in editorial, marketing, and sales before founding Wendy Sherman Associates. How have these diverse experiences shaped your approach as a literary agent?
Thank you for that question. I have been an agent now, started the agency 25 years ago, which is just like crazy to me. But before I was an agent, I worked on the publisher side for a very long time. I was fortunate to start off in an area called subsidiary rights, which I think people outside the business have never heard of. But if you're in the business, you probably know that that is involved in selling, licensing the publisher's books to book clubs internationally, to paperback back in the day when the publishers would sell the paperback rights as opposed to publish the paperback rights. And what I saw was that that was sort of like the center of power in the publishing house, because these were the people who worked in rights, who worked with the editors, who worked with production, who knew about what was going on in sales, and really had a bird's eye view of everything. And I was completely fascinated by it. So I started my career there. I spent quite a long time beginning at Simon & Schuster and worked my way up. And I learned about contracts and negotiating and how to position a book, how to pitch a book, how to figure out what an editor was looking for, all of those things that have 100% informed my life as an agent, because now I'm an agent on the other side as opposed to being an agent on the inside.
That's so cool, especially because you've gotten to see how also like trends too have changed and all the different aspects that goes into making a successful book. So
Yeah.
I mean, you're a powerhouse for writers to like get all that knowledge from you. It's amazing.
Yeah, I do think that being an agent who has worked on the publisher side makes you a better agent, because you do understand the process. You understand what goes on in those meetings. You understand what the concerns are that an editor is going to have in terms of getting their team on board. And when the book is published, you also understand the marketing and you understand the publicity, which I've worked in all of those areas when I was a publisher. And so it allows you to just inform your client and support your clients in a much better way.
Wendy Sherman Associates has represented a wide range of authors and genres. What qualities do you look for in a manuscript or author that signal a promising partnership?
Great question. I don't think there's any one thing that I can point to. I think you know it when you read it. And that's because before I'm an agent, before I'm a publishing person, I'm a reader. So if I read something and I have all these sort of marketing antennas in my head, I can read something and know there's a place for it. Or I can read it and think it's really interesting, but I don't know where it sits. And so I think any agent is looking for something that they know how to sell. And that means it speaks to me as a reader. It might be, if it's nonfiction, it might have to do with women's health. It might have to do with longevity. It might have to do with things that are enriching our lives as mothers, as children, whatever it is, wherever we are in our life. And so I'm coming to it from a place of completely embracing the topic. And I love to challenge myself with things I haven't done before, but I do feel that the things that are most natural to me are the things that speak to me as a person. I also think that's true with fiction. When I read a novel and I'm instantly captivated by the storytelling, there's something incredibly curious and intriguing about the character. It's a story I haven't heard before, or sometimes it's even a story I've heard before, but it's being told in a really, really fresh and original way. Then those are the books that I'm most drawn to, because again, as an agent, I know all the editors. So I start making a mental list immediately as to who I'm going to submit it to. And when I get to the end of reading something, even if I like it, if I actually don't know who the editor could be, I'm probably not the best agent for it.
Interesting. That's, I also love the way you're talking about like the feeling of something, and it's just like that inner knowing of when you connect with something. Me and my mom, my dad was out of town this week, and so we watched movies like crazy. And there was two romance movies we watched kind of back to back, and they were very similar in the way that they were structured and how they told their love story and what they were trying to get across to the audience. But it was interesting that the second movie, we felt so much more with it, even though they were very similar. There was just something internally, like my mom was bawling, I'm bawling. She's a crier, I'm not. So if you get both of us to cry, it's a good thing. And it was interesting. It's just that feeling of what connects you with the story.
Which is probably why, with women's fiction in particular, I'm so drawn to mothers and daughters.
Mhm.
Or I do have sons, but I'm saying like the mother and daughter theme is just always a success to me because it just speaks to me as a person. I have daughters. I had a mother, like all of these things just really land with me emotionally. And then if you can set it in a place that I didn't know much about, and I can actually learn something, which is very true with historical fiction, where you really feel as though you understand a piece of history that you
Yeah.
never knew about in that way. And because you're learning about it through characters as opposed to facts,
Mhm.
it becomes part of you.
Oh, absolutely. Historical fiction is my new obsession right now. Like just very, very new for me, but I'm obsessed with it.
I have a few for you.
Oh, perfect. Okay. For writers aiming to secure representation, what common pitfalls should they avoid during the querying process?
So there's so many, I'm going to say. I will say off the top of my head, I think that submitting queries too soon
Hmm.
is the biggest pitfall. And I've seen it happen so many times. And I get it. You've worked on this book, you've read it 100 times, you've revised it, you've had your friends look at it, and you're just like chomping at the bit. You want to get it out there. But if it's not really ready, you're doing yourself a disservice. So I tell people slow down. This is like a really long journey. And taking the time to get it exactly right, to get it in its best possible shape, is worth every moment. And when someone says, well, I figured I'd get an agent and then we could do the work together, I think that that's probably not serving you well as a writer because the agents are so overwhelmed with material and the regular work that we do that if you read something and you feel that it needs a ton of work, you might still stay in conversation with someone to say, I think you could hire a freelance editor, or I think you need more revision, but you're not really giving it the best shot.
So true. I went through that same process. My very first book I ever wrote, I wrote it when I was about 18, started it, and didn't finish until I was about 20. It took me about 2 years because I was kind of learning to write during writing it. And which is an amazing process, getting to learn how to write while you're writing a book, but at the same time, that's when you know it needs a good 3 or 4 drafts or 5 or 6 because you got to go back because you're going to learn so much between writing chapter 1 and writing chapter 25. It's so different between the two.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky that I have a dad who is very bluntly honest. And he read my book many times now. He's read it and he told me, maybe we should, look at some editors. And I got it professionally edited, and it was a world of difference to see the notes and to go, oh, this is everything I've done wrong, and these are the things I've done right.
Mhm.
It was I swear I learned more in that session than in loved my college, but I think I learned more in that brutal couple of months with my editor than even in college. It was a crazy experience, but yeah, definitely don't submit it until it's really good because
Yeah.
I made that mistake and submitted it when it was that no one else will ever be allowed to read it in that stage.
Yeah, no, I think that that's really so true and valuable information. And I wish I could tell people all the time, just slow down, get it right, because you're not going to get a second chance to go to that agent. Very rarely will an agent say they'll see it again. I mean, once in a while, but you really want to put your best foot forward. You put all this time and energy, and then to sort of hit the send button before it's ready is just like hurting yourself.
Exactly. It's like me in the morning. If I just did my foundation and not my eye makeup, like I would be doomed. So,
That's a good way to look at it.
how do you assess a writer's readiness for publication? And what advice would you give those preparing their manuscript for submission?
Well, it's a little bit of what we just talked about. It's about really revise, revise, revise. I mean, that to me is your superpower, because the more you can spend time doing that, the better shape it's going to be. And I think, one of the things I feel is very challenging for writers is you get different feedback. And sometimes it can feel as though you're chasing yourself. So you're changing it this way for this person and changing it. See, you need to be true to yourself and at the same time take it all in. Like there's no one right answer. There's no one wrong answer. I think it's just about really not being defensive and really listening to what people say to you so that you can decide which parts of that you want to go with.
I had a professor a couple of years ago who told me something kind of interesting, and he said to write, like, you remember in school you had those two little panels, and you'd have words you had to match to these words, draw little lines. And he told me, he said, write down a sentence of all the feedback you've ever gotten on a project and just write it down in a list. And on the other side, write down what's most important to you about the story, whether it's a simple thing as a word or the message or the theme. And he said, tie them together and which ones will help with what your message is, and the ones that don't, you delete. And then you have your new row of things to focus on. And I always just really loved that explanation of it.
I love that too. That sounds great.
For aspiring authors, the query letter is often the first point of contact. What advice would you give to writers crafting their queries to capture an agent's attention effortlessly?
It goes back to what we were talking about before in terms of revise. I really feel as though the query letter does not get enough attention. People feel like they've worked on this novel and now they're ready to submit it or whatever, whether it's a novel or a memoir. And now they're ready and they just write the letter. I mean, the letter is your resume. It is the document that is going to determine if your book ever gets read. So the more time you can put into it and give it to people who don't know anything about the book to read it and see if it really sticks the landing. Because, you want to, it should be short. I think there's a rule of thumb somewhere that's like 350 to 400 words altogether, which is not a lot. And you don't have to be somebody who's got a ton of credits to your name, although that's always helpful. If you don't have those things, it's okay. I think you want to make sure that you're telling enough about what your book is about that it's going to intrigue someone. Not tell them every single thing. It's not a synopsis, but you want to have enough on the page that you're going to capture someone's attention. And I think of it somewhat like flap copy. If you pick up a book in a bookstore and you read the left flap is the descriptive flap, and you read that, see what it says that's going to get someone to actually buy the book. So now your manuscript, fast forward, is being published. What's going to be on that flap? What is it going to say that's going to get the casual browser in the bookstore to pick it up? So it really needs to intrigue. It needs to clarify. It needs to entice. And it needs to make someone want to take the next step, which is then obviously they're going to see who you are and what you bring to the party, but then they're going to want to read it.
Yeah, I think what I just heard is that I need to go do a Barnes and Noble's trip and go through the bookstore a little bit. Might be what I have to do. But no, I love that idea. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the left flap is really about the book, and then the right flap is about the author. So you don't have a lot of words to tell somebody what they need to know. And the more you can really hone that and make it sharp and intriguing, the better it'll serve you.
You're participating in the 2025 Kauai Writers Conference, offering pitch sessions with authors. Could you share what writers can expect from these sessions and how they can best prepare to make the most of this amazing opportunity?
I will say, since I've been there once, that I've done conferences before, I feel as though it is really helpful for people to have clarity on what they're looking for. Yes. I mean, I'm there to serve. I am there to be of service to the writers that have chosen to speak with me. And that's how I approach it. So if you're wanting to get my opinion, I think it should be helpful for you to know what you're looking for. Are you looking for me to critique your writing? Are you looking for me to represent you? Are you trying to just get some feedback? Do you want some insight on the industry? And I think if you go into each session with an agent, knowing what you want, that's really helpful. So know what your goal is, because let's be realistic. The chances are every agent you pitch is not going to sign you. That's just unlikely. So what you want to do is walk away with helpful information. And so it's, do I want to have somebody read this sample of a chapter in the middle of the book and tell me if they like my writing style? That's okay. I don't find that to be the best use of time because it's coming in the middle of something. I like to know how it starts. I want to get the intro. It's like watching the TV series without the pilot, right? If you ever watch a pilot, they manage to get all the key players and all the future plot lines teased out in this one episode. And so when you're meeting with an agent, if you can give them a chapter that sets it up, that allows us to see, obviously highlight your writing, but also see what the book is going to be. To me, that's the best thing, because I don't know about you, but when I read fiction, I decide pretty early on if I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I think I'm a good, I think also because I'm of the generation that we have the attention span of goldfish. So I'm like,
I'm not going to argue with that. It's okay. I'm glad you said it. So that's okay though. It's good to know that because we need to get people's attention and, you're not going to have a ton of time. So if you have 15 minutes with an agent, sort of go into that knowing what you want from it and be upfront about it. Say, I would love nothing more than for you to give me some feedback on my writing style. I would love nothing more than for you to look at my query letter and tell me if you think it does its job, because we can do that too. I mean, we're yours for 15 minutes. And so I think it's good to know what you want out of the session. And I think if you make it clear up front, you're more likely to get what you want.
That's great to know as well, that we can give you a query letter as well if you don't want to do the first, page of the novel, and exactly get what you're wanting out of it, the information. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's me. I don't know if that's true with all the agents there, but I have a big thing about query letters because I think it really is what will determine whether you get the book read.
Yes, very much. Yes, even more than the synopsis, I feel like sometimes, because some agents don't want the synopsis, so that query is that's your ticket. You got to use it.
Exactly. I often don't read a synopsis because I don't want to know everything that happens. I want to actually see it unfold. But I have in my career, I can tell you the names of some of the query letters that over the course of 25 years have stuck in my mind because they were so well crafted.
So it feels like the book itself, like what sticks into your mind again, back to that feeling.
Exactly. It's really worth spending a lot of time on that. And I think what's hard for writers is often, as a novelist in particular, your job is to tell a story, to tell a broad story. And then with a query letter, you're being asked to boil it down to a paragraph or two, which is hard, but it needs to be done.
It does. And it's one of those things. It's like, I was somebody who wanted every single point of the story in the query. And I was like, but this is so important. And that is so important. And then you very quickly realize that, no, the things that are important are the parts that will make somebody have an emotional connection with it.
Exactly. I could not have said that better. And when you write your query letter, step back from it and say, is this too long? Is this doing everything I needed to do? Are there words or lines that are lovely, but not necessarily in service of your goal? So I just think it's good to take a really hard look at that. And again, workshop it, work with people. There's just it's such an important part of the process.
So do you have any authors right now that you're working with that have some books coming out soon that you want to tell us about?
Well, yes, I do. Thank you so much for the question. I, like all agents, I think I love debut fiction. I work with a lot of very talented novelists who, fortunately, have ongoing careers where we do books over, we work on their books year after year after year. And I'm very, very grateful to those authors. And every now and then, a debut lands on my desk that just blows me away. And I was fortunate to have that experience. I met a writer through another writer of mine. I'm going to say I met her 2 years ago. She told me at a dinner party about a novel that she was working on. And the moment she started to tell me the story, I got goosebumps. And I was nearly speechless. I was so captivated by what she was telling me, which was a novel that was inspired by her family's journey after the Holocaust. And as she started to tell me what happened to them and the story that she was writing in this novel, I wanted to cry right then and there. And so I was like, send it to me now, please. And she said, oh, it's not done. And I was like, well, get home right now and finish it, please. So she worked on it for a while, finished the novel. I fell in love with every single word. I was completely captivated. And we sold the book in an auction. It was preempted by the Pam Dorman imprint at Penguin Random House, and it's coming out in August. And it's called The Lost Baker of Vienna. And we've had, I think, 15 early endorsements from other writers who have all fallen in love with it. It's set up to be a big success, and it literally captured my heart.
Wow, what a beautiful story. And it's also a beautiful title. I love that. Thank you so much for taking the time with me. And I'm so excited to get to see you at the Writers Conference this year.
I look forward to seeing you in November as well. And thank you. It was really a fun conversation.